At the reception, my sister made me the punchline, my single mom sister, unwanted by anyone. The room erupted in laughter. Even my mother added, "She's already used." Then the groom suddenly rose, took the microphone, and froze the entire hall. I'm 34, a single mom, living in a modest two-bedroom apartment on the edge of town with my son, Luca. He's 8, with these big, curious eyes and a laugh that makes every long shift worth it. I work 2 jobs, mornings at a local cafe, nights at the front desk of a small hotel. It's not glamorous, but it's ours. Saturday mornings are for pancakes, and I've gotten pretty good at sewing patches into Luca's jeans when he wears them out. He calls me his superhero, and that's enough to keep me going, even when the world feels heavy. But in my family, being a single mom wasn't something to celebrate. It was a mark of failure. My mom, Judith, made sure I felt that at every holiday dinner with her sharp comments and side-eye glances. To her, appearances were everything. Perfect hair, perfect life, perfect daughter. That daughter was my younger sister, Vivian. 5 years younger, always polished, always adored. She was the golden child, the one who got silk handkerchiefs when she sneezed, while I got told to stop being dramatic if I so much as coughed. Vivian's wedding was supposed to be the family's big redemption, a chance to show the world we were picture perfect. And me? I was just the older sister who didn't fit the frame. When I got the wedding invitation, I almost didn't go. My name was misspelled on the RSVP card, and I wasn't in the bridal party. Not that I expected to be. But something in me, maybe that stubborn hope that families can change, made me say yes. I wanted Luca to see his aunt's big day, to feel like part of something bigger. I stretched 2 paychecks to buy him a little suit, rented a dress for myself, and did my hair in the bathroom mirror while Luca practiced tying his tie. "Mom, I look like a spy," he said, grinning. That smile, worth every penny. The venue was straight out of a movie, white roses everywhere, gold-rimmed plates, a string quartet humming in the background. Vivian floated through it all like she was born for the spotlight, her dress sparkling under the chandeliers. Luca was in awe, whispering that the chandelier looked like a spaceship and Vivian looked like a princess. I smiled, but deep down I felt that familiar ache of not belonging. When Vivian passed our table, her smile flickered. "You made it," she said, like she was surprised I showed up. She glanced at Luca, added, "He's getting big," and moved on. No hug, no warmth, just a quick nod before she returned to her adoring crowd. My mom didn't even look my way. She glided past like I was one of the waitstaff. We were seated at table 9, tucked in the back near the restrooms. Fitting, I thought, with a bitter laugh. I helped Luca wipe chocolate mousse off his tie and tried to ignore the whispers of my name floating across the room. I told myself to focus on Luca, on his excitement, on the fact that he was happy to be here. But then the speeches started and everything unraveled. Vivian stood up, holding a champagne flute, her posture perfect, her voice sugary sweet. The room hushed, hanging on her every word. "I want to thank all of you for being here," she said, glowing. "It's the happiest day of my life, surrounded by the people who mean everything to me." I wanted to believe I was included in that, even just a little. Luca was kicking his legs under the table, enchanted by the fairy tale vibe. I relaxed, thinking maybe this would be okay. Maybe she'd say something kind. Then she turned her gaze toward me. And of course, I want to give a shout out to my big sister, Lara. My heart lifted for a split second. I smiled at Luca, who looked up at me with this big, excited grin. "She's been such a role model," Vivian continued, her tone shifting, sharp but playful. "So strong, so independent, a single mom, raising a kid all on her own. No husband, no partner, just her and, well, clearly unwanted by anyone else." The room erupted in laughter. It hit me like a punch to the gut. My stomach flipped, my face burned, and for a moment I thought I'd misheard her. But she kept smiling like she'd just told the world's best joke. Some guests looked confused, but most laughed harder, clinking their glasses like it was all in good fun. I couldn't move. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned out the noise. Luca tugged at my sleeve, his voice small. "Why did she say that, Mama?" Before I could find words, my mom's voice cut through the room loud and sharp from her table. She's a used product, but hey, she still looks good for her age. Another wave of laughter, crueler this time, like a blade slicing through me. It wasn't just a joke, it was a public shaming, and I was the punchline. I gripped the napkin under the table, my fingers trembling, trying to hold myself together. I looked around, desperate for a kind face, someone to meet my eyes and say this wasn't okay. My grandfather stared at his plate. My cousin smirked at her phone. Even my uncle, who once said I reminded him of my late dad, wouldn't look up. Luca's little eyebrows were furrowed, his eyes searching mine for answers. That was what broke me. Not the words, not the laughter, but the fact that my son was watching his mom be torn down by her own family. I wanted to grab his hand and run, to leave this room and never look back. But my legs felt like lead, my mouth dry. I was trapped in that moment, drowning in shame I didn't deserve. Then I heard a chair scrape back. Callum, the groom, Vivian's perfect, polished fiancé, stood up. The room froze. He didn't look at Vivian, didn't smile, didn't play along. His eyes locked on me, and there was something in his expression, anger maybe, but deeper, like he was seeing something the rest of them missed. The air shifted, heavy with anticipation. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew it wasn't part of the script. "Laura, don't go," he said into the microphone, his voice low and steady. Every head turned. Whispers rippled through the tables. Vivian stiffened, her perfect smile cracking. My mom's eyes narrowed. Callum stepped out from behind the head table, moving slowly, deliberately, like he was carrying the weight of the room. He stopped near our table, right by me and Luca, and faced the crowd. "I can't pretend I'm okay with what just happened," he said. "I won't stand here and let cruelty pass as comedy." The room went dead silent, no clinking glasses, no laughter, just the hum of the air conditioning. I've heard a lot about family while planning this wedding, about loyalty, tradition, appearances, but what I just saw, that wasn't family. That was mockery dressed up as celebration. He turned to Vivian, who looked like she'd been slapped. "You mocked your sister for being a single mom, for raising a child without help. You laughed, and worse, you made her son watch it happen." Vivian opened her mouth, but no words came out. Callum didn't wait. She didn't ask to be in that position. But she did it. She showed up today, sat in the back, smiled, brought her son to celebrate your day. And you turned her into a joke. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some glanced at my mom, others stared at their drinks. Callum faced the room again. "Laura didn't stand up to defend herself. She didn't ask for sympathy. She's never needed a stage, but I won't stay silent. If I'm marrying into a family that sees cruelty as humor and shame as tradition, I need to rethink what kind of man I want to be." A gasp rippled through the guests. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" A fork clattered to the floor. Luca looked up at me, his eyes wide. I was frozen, holding his hand, my mind racing. I'd come here to survive the night, not to be defended. Not like this, not in front of everyone. Callum looked down at Luca, his expression softening. "Your mom's the strongest person in this room. Don't forget that." Then he set the microphone down, walked past Vivian without a glance, and headed for the door. The room felt like it had lost all its air. Vivian stood there, her posture crumbling, her fairy tale moment shattered. My mom stood abruptly, her chair screeching. "What an ungrateful boy," she snapped. "Embarrassing you like that, Vivian. Just like your sister. Always so selfish." But her words fell flat, no longer carrying the power they once did. I turned to Luca, brushing his hair back. "Are we leaving, Mom?" he asked quietly. "Yeah, baby," I said, managing a smile. "We're going home." I stood tall, took his hand, and walked toward the exit. People parted as we passed. Some avoided my eyes, others looked like they wanted to speak but couldn't. Halfway to the door, I heard my name. "Lara." It was my grandfather, Norman, his eyes red. He stepped toward me, voice shaky. "I'm sorry." "I should have stopped it years ago," I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I didn't hate him for his silence. I knew what it cost some people, but I wasn't carrying their guilt anymore. Outside, the air was crisp, a relief after the suffocating reception hall. Luca squeezed my hand. Is the wedding over? He asked. I looked down at him, smiling. Yeah, buddy. I think it ended exactly how it needed to. We drove home in silence, just the hum of the tires and Luca tapping his fingers on the armrest. That night, I tucked him in, kissed his forehead, and lingered by his door, watching him drift off. The next morning, my phone was flooded with missed calls, cousins, distant relatives, even guests I barely knew. I ignored them. Then a text from a friend. Someone recorded Callum's speech. It's on Facebook, 50,000 views already. Check the comments. I opened the video, and there it was, Callum's voice, steady and clear, standing up for me. The comments were overwhelming. This man's a hero. She deserved better. Every single mom just got some justice. I didn't cry or smile. I just felt still, like something tight inside me had finally loosened. Vivian tried to spin it, saying it was just a joke, that Callum overreacted, but the truth had landed, and no one was laughing anymore. A few days later, a bouquet of wildflowers arrived at my apartment with a card that read, "To the Lioness." No note, but I knew who it was from. The wedding never happened. Vivian and Callum called it off quietly. My mom called once, not to apologize, but to say I'd embarrassed the family by not laughing along. I listened for 30 seconds, then said, "I'm not your scapegoat anymore," and hung up. It wasn't dramatic, it was final. 6 months later, life hasn't changed much. I still work long hours, make pancakes for Luca, and patch his jeans. But I carry myself differently now. I don't hide in the back of rooms. Luca's different too. He asks big questions, talks about Callum like he's Captain America, and sometimes gives speeches to his action figures about standing up for the little guy. One night, brushing our teeth, he looked at me in the mirror and asked, "Mom, are you still sad about what Aunt Vivian said?" I paused. Not anymore. Why? He shrugged, toothpaste on his chin. Because I think you won, even though it wasn't a fight. He was right. I didn't yell or make a scene. I just stood up, held my son's hand, and walked away. And someone else, someone unexpected, decided silence wasn't enough. Callum didn't just stand up for me. He showed a room full of people what love really looks like. Not the kind in a tuxedo, but the kind that says, "No, not today." So here's what I've learned. Being alone doesn't mean you're unwanted. Being kind doesn't make you weak. And dignity, once you reclaim it, is yours forever. I didn't dance at my sister's wedding. I didn't toast or catch a bouquet. But I left with my son, my head high, and a quiet certainty that I don't need anyone's approval to know my worth. If this story hits you, if you've ever felt silenced or small, know this: your voice matters, your dignity matters, and you're not alone. Drop a like, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and let me know in the comments, have you ever had a moment where someone stood up for you, or you had to stand up for yourself? Subscribe for more stories that cut deep and remind us what it means to be human. Thanks for being here.